We are greatly looking forward to having a conversation with you. If you'd like to, if you have a story or can add to what we're saying, we'd sure like to hear it, because we know there are a lot of things that we don't know. So I'm going to start out just, most of you probably have heard the basic history of Pleasant Hill, but I'm going to start out just with the building part of it. And then Leah and Matt Thompson, and Beth, Rasmussen, you probably all know, and Marianne, Carlson. They're going to talk about the people of Pleasant Hill. So, these are some of the first pictures that I could find of Pleasant Hill. This is Milo Van Horn and Mabel Babb in front of Pleasant Hill quite early. So if you'll notice, there aren't any trees, it's in a prairie. Yeah, it's in a prairie. The way that Pleasant Hill came about, this first building, there's no basement in this building either. There was a religious revival in the 1850s, 1870s, mid-1870s, and there weren't enough churches, so they would meet in the schoolhouses. And the one that was most prominent in this area was the Anderson School. I'm not going to try to take that down if you want to look later. It's the Anderson Schoolhouse, and they started meeting there for their revivals. They soon outgrew that and decided that they were going to build a church. So there was an acre of land that was given, and where's my paper? What's her name? Hannah Smith. She deeded an acre of land for the church, and so this is what they built. No basement, it was on the prairie. Before long, in 1916, the church continued to grow. Here we have, this is another old photo. To me, it looks like it probably was brown. The paint was cheaper if it was brown. So that's another early photo. Now we'll move to, I actually was going to pass these around. Would you like to pass them around? Should we pass them around? Here, you guys take these and pass them around. When I had these enlarged, it was amazing how the facial features popped out. I got these and I was just in awe because, before you could see a picture of people in front of a church, now you see the people. So be sure to take a look at that, just a little side note. And feel free to touch all these and handle them. Look on the backs, there's good information. So the church went strong. They soon outgrew the church. They needed to build a basement. So in 1916, that's closing. In 1916, they added a basement. And I know we have some pictures in front of the basement, but here, this is a 1960 picture, which is obviously later, but they put the basement under here. You can see the front steps, whereas those other pictures, there were no steps. Also, this front foyer was turned so that you went down the basement stairs. It used to be a storage room. And also at that time, they redid the windows. There are some very beautiful stained glass windows. Wilkin and Jim Andrews' predecessors both have very pretty windows. They're still in the front of the church. Yeah, and a coon. So we come to the present time. These were 1960-ish pictures also, I think. Actually, 1985 and 1992. I think it had to be painted often, because there are a lot of pictures of the church has just been repainted, and it seemed like they were about 7 years apart. But now the church has been siding, so it's does not need painted. And here we have the modern pictures with the trees. Now it's no longer prairie, it's trees and bushes, and yeah, very beautiful. But not like the old prairie. So I'm going to stop there for that part of it. I have more to say about the current renovations that have happened, but we're going to save that for last. So now I'll turn it over to Leah. You want to go next? We'll start talking about the people of Pleasant Hill and the good stories we have.
Hi, I'm Leah Thompson. I'm pretty fairly new transplant to Jefferson. We moved there about 3 years ago. However, my husband is Matthew Thompson, so he grew up going to Pleasant Hill. So one of the first things that I noticed when I first went to Pleasant Hill, we were dating. He brought me to Jefferson for the first time, and we wanted to make sure we went to the memorial service at Pleasant Hill. And I went to the cemetery, because that's what I realized, to look at the graves and stuff. And the first one that stood out was Nathan McEwen, because he had a big Civil War plaque in front of his grave. And so that kind of started my interest in the church. I Googled it, just trying to see what's this guy's story. I know he was fairly young when he died. When he died, he was about 33, I want to say. 37? Oh, okay. Well, the big time wrong. Anyway, and so that kind of led me into, 3 years ago when we got here, I had a little more time to start looking this stuff up, and I knew once you move to Jefferson, I'd probably need a hobby or two to keep myself occupied. So I started my deep dive into the history of the people of Pleasant Hill. And so once I started looking up Nathan McEwen, that's when it led to his wife, which was Harriet, and she's very interesting. She was at the Anderson School. She was the first teacher at the Anderson School. He passed away fairly soon after the Civil War started. I think it was 1862, and that was he also actually. I think Beth supposed to talk about them, so I don't want to go too much into the McEwens, but they're a very interesting family. So once I started kind of looking into this, my husband likes to, I'm going to tell you a little bit about from the beginning. My husband, he'd always liked to joke about how he had to go outsource his wife from the South because he wanted to be sure that we were not related. And I was like, yeah, very funny. So we're not related, I think we're good. So the thing is, once I started looking into the people, you start to realize how they all kind of connect. There's a lot of relations, and they connect a lot. So I saw that there was a Thompson at the cemetery, and so I started looking this guy up. And sure enough, he was one of the sons of the original Thompsons from Scotland, and I'm sure there's probably some in the audience, there's other Thompsons around. And so I just, my interest started keeping, and it's a rabbit hole, because, once you start looking at one connection, it just keeps going and going and going. And so, anyway, that's kind of the people, so the church was built in 1881, right? And it steadily grew. I think the peak was probably in the early 1910s. And they used to have at some point there was 9 active organizations. And this included a baseball team, basketball team, a white WCA, and a white MCA. There's a picture here that I was kind of looking for earlier, but it's from a group, 1912, and they're called the Boys, so they're referred to now. And these are, I need to go and find it, but it was a collection of young men that kind of grew up and had this little group, and they all eventually were the ones that went to World War I. Let's see. So I did have a quote from 1912, and this was from Clyde Stillinger, and he first held the church's young people's group. There were 72 young people present. But by May 1952, which is around the time that it closed, so like 40 years later, when the decision was made to close the church, it had dwindled down to about 31 with the active church members. Anyway, so the church grew all the way up until World War I, and there was.
Can you talk a little louder?
And that's why I wanted to bring up Harold Calloway, because he was part of this group. There's 13 men from Pleasant Hill that eventually went off to World War I. He passed away, I believe, from influenza. And so when he came, they brought his body back. They had a memorial service at Pleasant Hill. I think he's buried over in the Jefferson Cemetery. And so I was like looking for his picture this morning, and that started in that little rabbit hole. But he was the uncle to Jim Andrew, which I think a lot of you know, who was also married to a Thompson. Jim Andrew was Matt's great aunt, so that was just kind of like a cool little thing I found out this morning. Even Matt doesn't, Matt doesn't know half this stuff, but I tried to. And also, so I'm not really sure, I don't see, I didn't see Calloway mentioned a whole lot when it came to the boys, the group of boys or whatever. But we do have his parents' wedding announcement from 1890, and I'm not sure where it came from, but it was included in this huge box that I got kind of acquired of a bunch of old pictures. So there's that. I think that was mostly what I had written down here. Yep. Yeah, there's if you want to look at this later, but there's the Jefferson deed from 1918, and it has the list of 96 men from the area that were sent off to the war. And then I did check this out before we left, and this is the group that was at the memorial service for Harold Calloway, and I'll just read out the names, there's not too many. It's Emery Terrell, Walter Thompson, Jesse Gordon, Wayne Thompson, Milo Van Horn, Oscar Elkins, Jim Kersey, Gordon Andrew, and ones that aren't pictured would be Lloyd Edwards, Roy Bowles, Sister Burke, and Homer Griffin. So I just figured that would kind of bring it to the present, because I know there's lots of ancestors still around. So if y'all want to see that picture, this is them holding the Gold Star flag for Mr. Holloway. So. Oh, and that's his picture. It's really blurry, but that's all I could find. So. Is Beth next?
Sure. I'll try to put my cheerleader voice on.
Yeah. How many people have relation?
How many of you, with the show of hands, have any relation or to Pleasant Hill Church? I'm just curious as to how many people have.
Really? Very good.
So I became involved with the Pleasant Hill probably about 10 years ago. And I walked into one of these big homecoming services we had, and I was just astounded at the beauty of this area and all the people, the connections that they had here, and they were a little short on maybe board members at that time. So Peggy, living down the street, not too far from down the road, she kind of encouraged me maybe to get involved, and I have not regretted 1 minute. This is one of the most beautiful little churches in the Wildwood, and I wanted to just expound a little bit on the McEwen family. And a lot of you probably already know he was started out from Jones County, Iowa to Sioux City, and he'd already been married with Harriet 3 years. And his stagecoach got stuck in the mud in a ravine, so he asked around the good people of Greene County, helped him get out of there. And he asked, is there any land for sale in this area? And he said, yeah, by the way, 4.5 miles southeast of Jefferson. If you can believe, we now live on that homestead. That was just amazing to find out. Was out after becoming involved with Pleasant Hill. So he went to Des Moines and he bought 200 acres for, guess, does anybody know how much he bought it for? Probably do. $1.25. So, he comes back to Greene County, he goes to Harriet, and they had 5 kids in, 10 years or something. She was very busy, Harriet, the schoolhouse teacher, and then the volunteer, the Civil War broke out, and he went with them, and one of his comrades was drowning in the Mississippi River, and he saved him, but as a result of that got typhoid fever. At the age of 37, only being married 12 years, Harriet went to Des Moines, took her 14 days by buggy and horse to bring his body back to be buried in Pleasant Hill Cemetery. So that was Nathan, and she continued teaching at the one-room schoolhouse there. The monument is right down the gravel road, just a little ways. She taught, I don't know how many students she taught there. A lot, but $18 a month. That was her wages to raise, I think, 5 or 6 kids at that time. So after, let's see, skip down. Then she married, after 3 years, she married